Welcome to the 10-Minute Life Lesson Podcast. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne. I train people for improved personal and professional development, offering my assistance to those ready to develop their goals into tangible, focused, and achievable plans of action. And this podcast is one of the tools I use to accomplish my mission. Generally, when the timer hits 9 minutes and 59 seconds on this recording, you'll have a fully developed life lesson that you can take with you and begin to implement immediately. And if this week's lesson has a ring of familiar, then it's probably a reinforcement of a life change you've already started to implement. This podcast falls under the umbrella of my greater personal development efforts, all under the Your Better You brand. For more information on accountability coaching or to gain access to tools, tricks, and life hacks, visit yourbetteryou.info. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. Now, here is this week's life lesson. This episode will be released today after Valentine's Day 2019. So that's February the 15th, Friday, February 15th, 2019. And on that day, we'll be past your struggles, your strife, and your stress for Valentine's Day the day before. If you are in a relationship, you had just as much struggle and strife dealing with the fact that you had to perform some sort of act of romantic love, whether you wanted to or not, because that's what the Hallmark people want you to do. If you are single, you are probably just trying to suffer through the day, get through all the issues of the Thursday, as it was, to get through the Friday, because hopefully your Friday will be much better without all the lovey-dovey stuff. And of course, flowers and chocolates will be half off the next day. Those are good stresses for the fake holiday and good stresses for love, trying your best to make sure your partner understands you and loves you and can see that with a show of affection. What's not so great is the flip side of painful, hurtful, and deceitful love. That's when people are emotionally or sometimes physically and definitely mentally doing what they can to use the love you have for them into a way to keep you attached to them. They may actually love you, or they may actually be using the words in a perverse manner to keep you around for whatever deep problem they actually have. This is not what love is. Love should not hurt. Love should never be painful, should never keep you stressed, should never physically turn into harm. If you're in a situation like that, the first thing that must happen is you have to know the problem, obviously. You have to understand what it is you're dealing with and how this thing could actually end up. And these aren't necessarily just relationships that are romantic, a spouse or a partner relationship. Some of these are just longtime friends or supporters or coworkers or parents or siblings, things like that. A situation where one side is using some sort of abuse on the other and they get away with it because of love. If there's a person that just straight out is taking advantage of you because you care for them and you believe they care for you or they should care for you, you have to realize where you are and how you're getting out of the situation. Because whether you like it or not, you have a situation that must change. Getting out of it may be a bit drastic, but there must be change in the situation you are going through at the moment. So what do? You start with a real evaluation of whether or not this relationship needs to continue and can continue. Do they actually love you? Do they actually care? Will they actually want to do the work that will be done, will be necessary, that will have to go through on both ends, by the way, to make this a better situation? Are they willing to be held accountable by a third party, someone independent of the two of you the same, to fix this, to get things better so that you can stop with the torturing games and make sure that in the process you understand that you may be playing the same games that they are. You just may be either in denial or they're playing them so much better to overtake what's going on. Oftentimes in situations like this, and this is not one of those things where you're asking for it, but oftentimes it is a trigger from one part where one person just wants to use that trigger in a sense of power and then gets overpowered in some way. This is not tossing the blame on either side or trying to get someone out of the responsibility of the abuse that's being caused. There's abuse being caused on the main end, but sometimes the encouragement of it, because you believe that if they work these things out, they'll eventually just show to love you, is something that's on your end. Both of you will need to get some work done. And maybe both of you may need to work on some deeper issues if you truly love each other. It may not be love in a sense. It may just be a severe case of codependence. That's a whole nother thing. Now, if you're dealing with a situation that's much, much, much deeper, something that, trust me, I can't go on through in the next 5 minutes with any sort of rational or plan of action, you've got a situation where this relationship needs to end. There is no way this is being fixed. There is nothing but pain and strife being caused on both ends because the person dealing out the pain can't fix whatever's wrong with them. And the person taking the pain, of course, is in danger. You need to go. You need to go. You need to find some way, any way, some effort to get out of the situation. You're going to find plenty of ways to think of not doing this. There's going to be, well, he may hurt himself. Well, that's on him to hurt himself, not to hurt you. There may be children involved or maybe other family members involved. Take them with you. Find a way to get yourselves all out there. Granted, I know this is not an easy instant fix. I have worked with people who manage women's shelters and work with charities who deal with domestic abuse and things on this level. And I know how difficult it is to get in these situations because it's not just a one all of a sudden it's there. And I know how difficult it is to get out of these situations. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of love, and a lot of bravery to admit that something needs to be done and to try to escape. And sometimes with literally nothing but the clothes on your backs and carrying your kids in tow as quickly as possible because you have a quick window of escape. And while the work I've done have been for women in abusive relationships, women trying to find their way out of this way, men get into this just as much as women do, just not as widely reported. There are plenty of men out there who are being tortured, being abused, being mentally broken down, and yes, physically broken down. Men do get physically abused all the time, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, but the shame of it all is one thing that keeps men in situations that they should get out of, and they already know that. This is a very hard topic, and I know it's a hard topic and weird topic to toss in the day after Valentine's Day, but this is something that is a point, I guess, in my head to get out right now, because if you're hearing this message and this is you, then now is the time to start the plan of action and get yourself out of danger. Get yourself out of trouble. Find whatever support you can. Find someone to talk to about what's going on, someone to help you plan a way out of what's happening. Often the abuse is a part of a big power struggle where the person who is doing the abusing, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, has control of most of the possessions. They have the lease in the house. They have the car. They have the money coming in, and you are basically up to them for all your supplies and situations. That makes it much, much harder to find a way to get away if you can't just up and go and have your own ways and means to take care of yourself. There is a national domestic abuse hotline you can call to help you figure out what you can do to start the plan on getting yourself to escape. If there's a local hotline or a local shelter that you can get in touch with, try them as well. They'll obviously be able to help you out in a quicker way. But if you know you're in a pickle, you know you're in a struggle, you know something is wrong, and this is something that cannot be fixed, you cannot fix them, and you understand you're not broken and can do this by yourself without their help, try the hotline. Try the hotline. The number is 800-799-7233. 800-799-7233. Website is thehotline.org for the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and they are manning that 24/7. Not the message on love that you expect on the day after Valentine's Day. But sometimes love hurts, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. Love shouldn't hurt. Support shouldn't come with any caveats. People should not be cruel to people they say they care about. If you're in a bad situation and you know you're in a bad situation, time to figure out what to do. If they will go with you to help save the situation, then that's fine. If it's not going to happen, it's time to find a way out. One would think I was bitter on this Valentine's Day, but that's not the case. Situation is great at home. My wife, of course, for those who have followed me in this podcast and the long podcast before, knows that this time last year, she was recovering from surgery for breast cancer after going through her first round of chemo to shrink the tumor so they could operate. And she was going through a lot of issues with that. So this year, our Valentine's celebration, a bit more than we normally do because it's actually a sort of delayed anniversary from last month. But we're going to do something to celebrate because we can. That's what's going on. So don't worry about us. We're good. But if you do have issues with some sort of love issue, that's not quite love, I implore you to use the resources that we used or find some local resource. Once more time, the number for the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233, and their website is thehotline.org, and they can help you find a way out or maybe pull you out if necessary. So the details for what we have here in our podcast, this is, of course, the 10-Minute Life Lesson Podcast. Its sister podcast is Steps to Your Better You, both homed, living at the website yourbetteryou.info. To contact the show specifically, email us at yourbetteryouinfo@gmail.com. And for my other projects, we're cleaning up the website with a brand new big launch coming soon. jclevelandpayne.net, and email me at jclevelandpayne@gmail.com. So thank you so much for going along with this really, really deep episode. It just is what it is and was what it was, and the timing came out that it seemed like the right thing to do. Love shouldn't hurt. Being with someone should mean something, not just being stuck with someone because they won't let you go. It's just that simple. If you're in a relationship or have some sort of relationship where there is pain and hurt involved, then you can get out of it or you can limit yourself from the person. I talk a lot about limiting yourself from people who aren't giving you what you need to grow. This is a situation where if they're literally holding you hostage, you've got to find a way out. If this is something that isn't deep into your mind today or this is not a big issue for you, I thank you so much for listening to the episode anyway, and share this with someone who may actually need a bit of support, or share any episode that you think would help out anyone out there. Sharing the episodes, sharing the podcast, sharing what we have going on is the greatest way you can help me in this situation here. That is doing these episodes, doing these podcasts. And of course, comments, feedback, telling me what you thought about it is a big thing as well. So I know I'm on the right track. I can guarantee you we'll do not very many episode this deep, but sometimes you got to clear the palate. You got to see what's going on and what's actually in your head and get stuff off your chest. And that's what happened this week. Next week, we'll have something that's hopefully much more lighter and much more on the personal and professional development, something you can put in your tangible hands. This week, it was just something that needed to be said. Thank you for putting up with this week, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of the 10-Minute Life Lesson Podcast, brought to you by yourbetteryou.info.